We had over 3 gigabits per second of streaming data going out when I checked just before I came out. We had a lot of people watching that. The last several months of 2000 were particularly challenging for Apple and our industry. With a bang. We got a lot of incredible stuff to show you today. So let's get started. First thing I want to talk about today, Mac OS X. Mac OS X. Let me review the architecture of Mac. A kernel called Darwin, the most killer graphics ever, tremendous frameworks for developers to write to, and a stunning new user interface called Aqua. Darwin. Darwin's pretty amazing. Of course, it has protected memory so it doesn't crash, and our goal is to never have Darwin crash. It's got virtual memory, so it manages the memory for you. No more setting the amount of memory each app's going to get. It does it all for you. Preemptive multitasking, so if you're working on something, something else can't block you. Multi-threading, so again, you can juggle activities very easily. Symmetric multiprocessing, so when you throw in a second processor, things accelerate automatically. And BSD Unix services, so you can talk to enterprise systems. You know, most of the servers in enterprises are Unix-based, and we are their twin brother. And it's fully open source. So we have a Linux-like community that's already built up around Darwin, and matter of fact, helped us quite a bit. We've already incorporated a lot of their feedback and work into Darwin. So that's the architecture of Darwin. Now we move on to graphics. We've got 3 levels of graphics, 2D, 3D, and multimedia. In 2D, we have Quartz, which is remarkable. Quartz is based on the PDF Internet Standard. It does PDF rendering on the fly, fully anti-aliased, supports all the standard fonts out there, compositing transparency. It's incredibly fast and incredibly stunning. We move on to 3D, Opengl, industry standard. It's great for games, but it's also great for professional imaging. And we're starting to use it more and more for very high-end stuff as well. Hardware acceleration optimized for the G4, Opengl. And of course, QuickTime, we've based it on the latest version of QuickTime, QuickTime 5. We've integrated it into the OS so it can take advantage of the advanced plumbing. And of course, we have a new player interface as well. So we've got the most killer graphics on the planet built in right to the core of Mac OS X. Frameworks. We have 3 frameworks, Classic, Carbon, and Cocoa. Classic, of course, runs existing Mac OS 9 apps as is. Almost all Mac OS 9 apps just run in Mac OS X without any modification. And it's pretty remarkable. But you don't get the core advantages of Mac OS X. To do that, developers have to tune up their apps for Carbon. Takes them a few months, and they produce an app that springs to life in Mac OS X, taking advantage of all its new features. And this is what all of our developers are working on doing now. Plus, we've got an extraordinarily advanced object-oriented API called Cocoa, which is the coolest thing out there for writing new apps in. You can write apps 10 times faster than any other technology we know of in the industry. So we've got killer APIs for our developers, and we're supporting full Java 2 as well in Mac OS X. So those are our frameworks. And a stunning new user interface called Aqua, which I will show you more of in just a second. So that's the architecture for Mac OS X. We just finished our beta release. We released a beta release of Mac OS X last September. And I can report to you now, it's been a stunning success for us. We anticipated about 10,000 people buying the beta. We had 100,000. 100,000 copies of the beta have been sold. We anticipated 3,000 to 4,000 individual feedback submissions. We've had over 75,000, some of them quite long. And we've read every single one, we've categorized them, and we've learned a lot from this, and it's helped make Mac OS X better. So I thank you guys who sent those feedback submissions, and we're going to get a much better OS because of your help. I went into the database and pulled some things out to characterize 3 kinds of feedback for you. The first was positive feedback. We always like a little positive feedback. And the most frequent positive feedback was far more stable. This thing is, in beta form, far more stable than even OS 9 is in shipping form. And we're very gratified to hear that. Second, Aqua's incredible. People in general loved Aqua. There's a few things I'd like to see changed, but in general they loved it. Super easy to install. We nailed the installation. Classic really works. I think people were really surprised that we could run Mac OS 9 apps in Mac OS 10, and it works well. And a really interesting one, a lot of feedback that Mac plus Unix is a whole new ballgame for Apple. That this is taking the power of Unix and marrying it with the legendary ease of use and advanced application platform of the Mac and producing something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world that people are really excited about. The second area of feedback was missing features. A lot of missing features. That all these features are now in the OS, as well as many others that we just didn't have at beta. And the last category was Keynote toolbar is awfully big and horsey. So we listened to these concerns very carefully. And our users, and we're not stopping. And we've added some new features in Mac OS 10, and I would like to show them to you right now. One that nobody asked for, but we added anyway, was this new screensaver. It's kind of cool. It goes and finds all your icons and makes a cool screensaver. But let me show you one other thing that's kind of neat. We have another one in. Whoops, I didn't want that. We have another one in here, which you can just put your own pictures in, and it will go ahead using Opengl and cross-dissolve and zoom them into each other. And it's really beautiful. So I threw some pictures of a beach up here, but you can have pictures of your family or your dog or our products or whatever you want. But it's really nice. Something you've never seen on a computer before. And it turns your computer into this most gorgeous digital picture frame when you're not using it. All right. Well, we'd all like to be there. So, I'm going to run through a few things very quickly, just in case some of you have never seen Mac OS 10. As you know, you can move windows around real time, not just the outlines. They resize real time, as you've seen before. And one of the things that has really worked out well has been Sheets. As you know, in Mac OS today, when the OS wants to tell you something, it throws up a panel which can get disconnected from the window that it applies to. It gets very strange when you start to work on many applications at once and you don't know which window the panel applies to. We've gone to what we call Sheets. When the OS wants to interact with you on a document basis, it throws up a sheet, and you can interact with it, in this case, a save panel. Very simple. When your window gets very small, it goes like this. And as you can see, it even moves away from the side if you're too close to the edge. Okay? Very, very simple. And I guess Sheets also illustrates something we're trying to do with Mac OS 10 that's really important to us. To make it more powerful, yet at the same time easier to use. And that's a tall order to do both of those at the same time. So here we have a save panel that's the simplest save panel you've ever seen. You name the document, and you pop down a list, and you tell it where you want to save it. Couldn't be simpler. But what if where you want to save it isn't in this list? Well, in that case, the advanced user just pops this up, and they can traverse the whole file system right here and say they want to put it here, they want to put it in documents, and they just add to, they can, anywhere else in the file system they want to go. They can add anything to favorites as well, or replace a favorite, and very, very simple. So we have, and it's a great place to put documents. So as an example, I can grab some more apps and drag them down into the dock, and as you know, you can see the dock just shrinks as we add more to it. I can also minimize things into the dock. Right now on the Mac OS, when you minimize things, it's not the perfect experience to get that window shade. It kind of clutters up your screen. Here, again, things minimize right into the dock. I'll get another picture up, and again, just minimize them right into the dock. They come up right where you left them. If you've never seen this in slow-mo before, let me just show you in slow-mo so you can see the production value of which this happens at. It's pretty wonderful. Okay. Now, one other thing that the dock allows for us to do is we can set its size. So I'll go to System Preferences here, and I can set the dock size to be as large as it can be, or I can even set it to be smaller. So at a maximum, it will be this size. But when the dock gets small, if I want to grab something really fast, it might be hard to see, so I can turn on magnification, just like this, right? Isn't that nice? And I can even hide the dock if I don't want to see it, and when I bring it up, it'll just come up when I move to the bottom of the screen like this. Very simple, very unobtrusive. It's pretty wonderful. Okay, that is the dock. Now, what I'm going to do now is bring up a Quicktime Movie and just show you one other fun thing about the dock. This is a movie trailer here. I'll just bop into where we get a little action. Watch this.
The story of a warrior.
See anything?
The woman he loved. A daring outlaw.
The dock has become very active.
And a princess destined to become a warrior.
So, the dock has become a very active place where applications can even go as far as play movies. They can show status, they can communicate with you in any way that they choose. All righty. New, based on people's feedback of wanting the functionality of the Apple menu. I can go down here and click and hold and get a pop-up of everything in that folder. Okay? I can even go to Applications and get a click and get all my documents. Boom. There we go. So everything I've got in here, I can have multiple folders and drag stuff out. Well, how far does this go? Well, let me show you the ultimate. I can drag my hard disk down here. Right? I'll put it over here. That's my hard disk. I can go to Users, Avi, Pictures, bring up a picture. All righty. Thank you for these suggestions. They came from our users. Now, we've taken the Apple menu that used to be in the center of the screen, and we've moved it over to the left where it was. But we've changed it a bit. You know, right now when people think, oh, there may be multiple finders someday. Some beginners may never even use the Finder. With email, you don't have to go to the Finder to find your email, right? So documents can manage their own files and present them to users in much more intuitive ways than a file system. And so we're going to be moving in that direction over time. And to take the first step, we've taken out a few of the features that you always have to go to the Finder to get. Like when you're in an application and you want to go to sleep, or you want to quit, or you want to log out, all you have to do now is go to the Apple menu. And we've got sleep, restart, shutdown, and log out from anywhere in the system. You no longer have to go back to the Finder. We also have recent items, of course, right here. New font panel. We got a lot of feedback that the font panel was too big. Well, one of the things we've done in the font panel, you shrink it down, look what happens. You just get pop-ups, and you can even get rid of collections to where your font panel is very, very small. And you can leave it up all the time and do whatever you want with it. So that's the font panel. But we also got a lot of feedback that people wanted a status bar. We've allowed you to add a status bar here, show number of items, show how much space you have left on the disk if you want. So you can show and hide that. But the biggest piece of feedback we got was that different users wanted different things on the toolbars, whether it be in the Finder or Mail or Preferences, etc. And so we've made them all customizable. So you can go in and you can say, customize the toolbar, and we'll give you a range of things you might want to do here. I want to bring my movies up here. I want to bring the path up here. I want to move this over here. And maybe I'll bring music up here too, right? I'll even put customize up there. And I can view things as icon and text, or I can view them as icon only, or I can even view them as text only if I wanted to, but I like both. And so here's my new toolbar. And again, I've got my views right here, and I've also got my path right here if I want to get back anywhere, right? And of course, I can even go customize right from here. So I've got everything I want right there. And of course, I can oops, done. And of course, I can even hide my toolbar, right? But we've got something even more fun. We got a lot of feedback that people love the new Finder, but some of them also love the old Finder. So let me go back here, back to computer, and let me navigate here to users, and I'm going to go into Avi again, and I'm going to go into pictures, and I'm going to open a picture. Now this is how the Finder works in macOS 10, and it doesn't litter your screen with a lot of windows. But if you want to litter your screen with a lot of windows, I'll just open it from the hard disk here. Whenever the toolbar is closed, and you click on something, it spawns a window. And so you can have it any way you want it. If you want it to work exactly like the old Finder, you got it. Okay. So that is macOS 10. Again, to review, new Apple the dock, pop-up menus right off the folders and off applications listing all the open documents. The new toolbars, dramatically smaller, completely configurizable, customizable, and even hideable to where the windows work just like they did in macOS 9, spawning windows every time you go down a level. This is some of the features we've added to macOS 10. Now let's move on to applications. Because the minute we ship macOS 10, of course, the mantra is going to be carbonized applications, carbonized application. Again, when we go into frameworks, it's not the classic apps we're talking about because those all just run. So we have thousands of apps that run on macOS 10 from day one. But we're talking about the carbonized and Cocoa apps that take full advantage of all the macOS 10 features. So how are we doing on that? As of today, we have 400 developers committed, which represent over 1,200 brand name apps that are being worked on for release on macOS 10. Of those, 350 of them have been announced to date. That includes the 100 that are being announced this week alone. Now, the apps are going to come out over a time period. They're going to come out in a bell curve. We're going to have hundreds coming out this spring. The majority of them, the avalanche of them, is going to come out this summer. You can imagine Macworld July is going to be the coming out party for a lot of macOS 10 apps. And then we're going to have some laggards in the fall. So it's going to follow this bell curve. I'd like to show you one now that's coming out this spring that's amazing. It is probably the largest Mac app ever. It's actually larger than macOS 10. And that is Alias Wavefront's Maya. So we've been working closely with the Maya team. They're excellent. And I'd like to invite Richard Karras up on stage to show us Maya running on macOS 10. Thanks.
Thank you. You know, Alias Wavefront customers are some of the most creative people on the planet. Let's take movies, for example. Last year, all of the films nominated for the Special Effects Academy Award used Maya, our 3D product for animation. As a matter of fact, 26 our product here today, because we're going into beta in 4 weeks, and we're shipping this product next quarter. And we can't wait to take the creative professionals from the Apple marketplace and bring them into our world of 3D. Now with me today is Dan.
You can see we get really great interactive performance. I can also zoom in and tumble around this in real time.
Now, isn't that awesome? That's the Dynamics engine. That's the same Dynamics engine that was used in Star Wars Episode 1 for the pod race sequence. The whole thing was done using our Dynamics engine. And we can use that Dynamics throughout our application. But one of the things that's really key to us is the workflow. Workflow is king. And for us to take the 2D artists into our 3D world, we want to bring that kind of familiar workflow. So we have this technology called Maya Paint Effects.
Real-time shadows. We're able to paint these in. You can see they actually grow as plants would. See, we have hundreds of different brushes that ship with the product. So you can see I can paint these in, and they all vary themselves randomly. So we can have subtle variations in color and shape. And all of these brushes can also contain animation. So you can see how quickly I can add these. You can see we can also use paint effects to do other types of paint brushes. So for example, I can just add clouds to the sky here. And you can see that they get painted in 3D behind the mountains. They behave properly. And again, all of these brushes can contain animation. I've gone ahead and
Thank you. So there you have a glimpse of what is Maya. We invite you to come by our booth, more of Maya on Mac OS X. So thank you.
Okay, so Maya is one of the apps that's coming out in the spring along with hundreds of others. The avalanche will happen this summer with some laggards in the fall. I think we've got a great lineup of applications coming out for Mac OS X this year. So let's get to schedule. When can I buy Mac OS X? You will be able to buy Mac OS X at your favorite channel partner on Saturday, March 24th, in store. We're going to be shipping. We are taking the last several weeks to make sure this thing is absolutely solid. We're feeling very good about it right now. Saturday, March 24th. Price, $129. So March 24th, you'll be able to buy your copy of Mac OS X. Now, as I said earlier, the app, okay, Mac OS X. What's next? Power Mac G4. Today, we're launching a whole new generation of Power Mac G4s. And the theme of this new generation is power to burn. Power to burn. Of course, the G4 is based on the PowerPC G4 chip. And you all know, as much as I, that we've been coasting along at 500 megahertz now for almost 18 months. That's too long, isn't it? So today, we're taking it up to 733. This is a new generation G4 chip that's delivering over 5.5 gigaflops of sustained performance. It's amazingly fast. And we're going to have 4 models of G4s. 4 models. Now, what do they all have in them? They all have a few things in them, so let me go through that first. They all have CD read-write drives in them to start with. We're late to this party, but we're here, even at the entry-level systems. CD read-write standard in all models. We've got a new architecture in this machine that's really fast, 133 megahertz system and memory buses. We're getting over a gigabyte per second of sustained internal bandwidth in these systems. AGP4X for graphics, to get the fastest graphics systems possible with write combining, which is very important as well. And we're going to be adding Nvidia graphics cards. We're going to be adding Nvidia graphics cards in the top 3 models, GeForce 2MX standard in the top 3 models, AGP4X in all models. All models also have a new audio system in them with a 10-watt integrated digital amplifier, gigabit Ethernet on the motherboard, and all models now have 5 slots. Now, in addition to the 5 slots, we've made the PCI bus a lot faster. We've taken out the bridge and some other things, and it's dramatically faster. Now, 5 slots, we've been short-selling ourselves. We've been telling the world we had 3 slots, but the whole PC world counts the graphics slot as well. And so, the way everybody else counts slots, we've had 4 slots. We are upping the AGP to 4X, and we are adding a 4th PCI slot, so that every Power Mac now has 5 slots. And every new Power Mac is completely OS X ready, fully configured, 4 models. 466 megahertz up to 733. They are single processor machines. Why? Because if we wanted to wait to get enough 733s, we can, so they are single processor machines. However, we will be offering the 533 in a dual processor configuration that you or your channel partners can buy from Apple as a BTO config. But the standard configs are going to be single processor machines. Next in the top 3 configs, CD read-write across the line, and here's the prices, $16.99 to $34.99. Now, what's this? What's this thing called a Superdrive? Well, this is huge. This is an industry first today. We've never seen anything like this before. And it's a big deal. So, there are 2 kinds of optical drives today, those that deal with CDs and those that deal with DVDs. A drive that reads CDs is called a CD-ROM drive. We're all familiar with that. That's what ships in most of the entry-level computers today. We've been shipping a drive called a DVD-ROM drive, which reads DVDs and CDs. But we missed something last year called the CD-ROM or CD read-write drive, which reads and writes CDs. You can't read DVDs, but a whole lot of people were willing to make that trade-off so they could write CDs. And it's been huge. Now, some people still want to read DVDs as well, so there's going to be some drives coming out this summer called combo drives that do all 3 of these. They read and write CDs and they read DVDs. But what about this last quadrant? That's right. That's called DVD-R. That's the ability to write a DVD with data and video, but video that DVD can be played on. Now, we think this is so important, but we don't want to give up the rest of it. We think CD read-write's important too. So we have been working with our partner Pioneer to come up with a drive that does all of these things, that reads and writes data and audio on CDs, and reads and writes data and video on DVDs that can be played in consumer players, just like the CD audio disc can be played in consumer players. And that drive is called the Superdrive. And it's a really big deal. And this is an industry first. Now, the Superdrive, a drive that could write DVDs, that could be read on consumer players, yesterday cost $5,000 for the drive alone. Starting today, it is bundled in with every new 733 megahertz Power Mac, where you get the whole computer and the Superdrive for $34.99. So, the new Power Mac G4s have the power to burn CDs, DVDs, oh yeah, and Pentiums too. So, well, is that really so? What about this Pentium 4 thing? We're at 733 megahertz, they're at 1.5 gigahertz. Do we have the power to burn them? Let's find out. Phil, I'd like to bring Phil Schiller out, our Vice President of Product Marketing.
Newest Power Mac G4 running at 733 megahertz, a svelte 733 megahertz. And on the right, we've got what people believe is the heavyweight champion, the new guy in the block, the brand new Intel Pentium 4, and it's got 1.5 gigahertz. I mean, that thing must just scream. So we're going to put these things in a heavyweight battle. And I think you know the best app to use to test this stuff is the app our customers use the most to run up Photoshop. Now we're going to go through a 110 megabyte file with over 140 artist actions given to us by an artist. On, go. So you recognize this movie, a recent movie. We're bringing in multiple layers. We're using a bunch of transforms. We're adjusting color levels. We're moving and merging layers. Starting to blend them together using opacity and lighting effects. And the Mac is done.
All right, gigahertz and a half is done.
The undisputed champion, still reigning champion, Power Mac.
Thanks,
Thank
Phil.
You.
We've, in this case, for the G4 versus 36 seconds for the Pentium running at a gigahertz and a half. The G4 is 33% faster.